Welcome back to the Two Promises Podcast. Let's dive right into another exciting adventure with BD and crew as he pursues his new passion of one day finding the most epic bourbon. The Two Promises team send their special thanks to Hobie and the Huckleberries for their masterful theme music. So grab a glass, relax, and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey and I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth whiskey. No more wine. I like straight bourbon. Baby, you try the ride.
Welcome back. I'm super excited to have all the listeners here and really excited to have our guest on today. I'm super excited to introduce her. It's a powerful woman that I have known for years, really. We met in the business realm, and over the years, she has just really just took off, accelerated in ways that have been really mind-blowing, and it's been so beautiful to see. So I'm so excited to, one, reconnect with her and hear a little bit more about her journey and all of the amazing things that she's been doing while I've been kind of doing whatever it is that I've been doing. So I'm going to read her bio because it just speaks everything way more eloquently than I could do. And then we're going to pass it over to her. You guys are going to be so excited to meet her. And again, we're highlighting a lot of lady bosses and some powerful women. So she's part of this series and really a big anchor in this series. So Magda Khalifa is a first-generation American U.S. Army combat veteran, business owner, speaker, and best-selling author of American Dream, which stands for discipline, resilience, endurance, adaptability, and mentorship to succeed and win in life. After witnessing the attacks in New York City on September 11, 2001, she left her lucrative career and comfortable life to join the military and fight the enemy. After 2 tours in Iraq, she returned home to face her own battle, struggling with transition and health issues. Magda succeeded in turning her life around and shares her success path through the Freedom Triangle, which is amazing, by the way, introduced to the world in her memoir. In 2020, she launched the first veteran-owned luxury fragrance line, Triangle Fragrance, featuring masterpiece, I'm going to mess all this up, Eau performs such as Confidence for Women and Victory for Men. I'm going to let her tell you about all that because that's awesome. And I really want to kind of share a couple stories because she has some collector's cards, which is in here, and she definitely continues to lead, inspire, and serve men and women worldwide through speaking and her unique story perspective. So without further ado, instead of reading about it, I'd rather just introduce you to her so that she can tell you a little bit more about what she's been up to. Magda, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brent. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It is so great to have you. So we kind of open up our shows a little bit with just kind of talking about beverages. So maybe if you have a favorite cocktail or a favorite beverage that you'd like to share right now. I'm drinking a Maker's Mark and Coke, because Maker's Mark is currently in my whiskey of the week, even though I'm recording for a different week. So that's what I've got going on. And you?
Nice. Well, to battle the cold front here,
yes,
as it is in the middle, by a company called Don Pablo.
Ooh, a bourbon-infused coffee by Don Pablo?
Yes.
That sounds...
I came across this a couple weeks ago and fell in love with the flavor. It's unbelievable.
That sounds absolutely awesome. When I was in San Diego, I ordered some from a Firehouse company, and it had some of those really unique fusion blends. So that's something I'm really excited about with the coffee and the alcohol industry.
Yeah, I think it's a great marriage.
Absolutely. I mean, alcohol and caffeine. I mean, how do you go wrong with that? Awesome.
No, it's really interesting. I went to their website. First I purchased. Then I tried it. Then I went to the website to check out the story. And what I love is that they don't, use chemicals for the flavor. They actually soak the beans in the bourbon.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I thought that was genius.
Absolutely. I like whenever there's new processes that they just find unique ways to do something. I think I talked about Cleveland whiskey at one point. If not, I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. But they were trying to accelerate the aging process by basically pressure cooking the distillate with, say, planks inside of the pressure cooked vat. And that just kind of speeds up so you're not having to warehouse the whiskey over a longer period of time before you can get a return on investment.
Look at that innovation.
Right? And so speaking of bourbon, you have the very first one of your fragrances that I ever bought. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but your fragrance line is truly amazing. So I can't help but not speak about it. I've been yelling it on this podcast pretty much since day one. But Victory was the first one that I purchased. And can you tell me a little bit about that profile?
Yeah. So Victory it consists of Cuban tobacco note, Russian leather, vanilla, and bourbon. So it's a very, very ultra masculine scent, very powerful, long lasting, and one of the best sellers.
It is awesome. I was so just thrilled with that. I think I sprayed it on everything and drove everyone crazy. But the second one that I got was Energy, and that one is, I'd say a lot more subtle, but very powerful in its own right.
Yes. In fact, what's nice about Energy, even though it is marketed for men, women love that Asian bamboo scent. And they have been buying Energy equally as the men have, which is really interesting.
That's super cool. Like I said, I love both of those. I'm ready to get into the blue line. I think I tried to order it on one of the sales, but I don't know exactly what happened. I think I had a user error on my end because I usually do that. But I can't remember, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, one of those things. But anyway, I'm super excited. Oh, but yeah, what else? So you also have your book. Would you mind kind of telling us a little bit about your book? Because, I think that's a very powerful thing, and that's a lot of your transition story, a lot of your struggles through what I'm going through right now. And honestly, you have always been a very close friend, a mentor to me in so many ways, and you've just being able to share our struggles, even though you've seen me in places you've been, and you've always been that voice of reason and that guiding light, even if I couldn't recognize it at the time, because you'd already gone through that struggle and you'd survived that and grown through it, and you could see me in it, and you knew kind of how to treat the angry animal or the injured animal or the trapped animal. And that's just been so awesome for me, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for always being there for me, and I just would love to hear more about how you encapsuled that in your book.
Thank you, my friend. That's the whole point. We are very strong people in our own rights. And, life sometimes shakes you so hard that it breaks you down a little bit. And you find yourself in situations where you're not sure how to navigate, to push through. But you manage to, because there's something in you, in me, to keep going, to that internal strength to keep going. No matter how much the pain or whatever it is that you're going through that's really holding you back. And went through my journey, and I believe we all go through struggles in life, but
Absolutely.
I realized I needed to share the journey I went through and the solutions I found along the way, because since I was able to push through and turn my life 180 degrees around, if I didn't share that with others who are struggling with their own situations in life, then, what is the point? Like, what is the point of having made it through if you're not helping others, paying it forward, by being vulnerable and sharing
Absolutely.
that?
That's so powerful.
Yeah, so that's why I wrote that book, was to get that story out there and provide the value of different points that people can consider that they may not have considered previously or up until that point.
Absolutely. That's so powerful. And we're going to make sure that we have links to that book and to all of your websites and all of your publications. And I bought the book whenever it first came out. I'm not going to lie to you. There was a lot going on in my life at that time. I think I was deployed. I haven't read it. But now that you're on the show and now that I'm a little bit more stable, I am committed to reading that book. It's on my reading list, and I'm going to pick it up and start it today or tomorrow. So I want to make sure that that is available and easy for all of our listeners so that they can reach out and connect to you, and also where to find your fragrance line.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I look forward to hearing what resonates the most with you.
Absolutely. So you were talking a little bit about those deep challenges and those deep struggles. And whenever I'm hearing that, and the way I'm resonating with that is this grit, and just that sheer grit. You were talking about finding that something inside of yourself, which it's different for each person. And whenever you find it, I think varies person by person, and maybe it goes deeper at different stages of life. But would you mind sharing a little bit for our listeners either in your military struggles, because you worked with special operations unit, you were a special operator. You did some really incredible things at the very beginning of some things that I got, and kind of when things were a little bit more mature. So you have a very unique perspective, and you've helped me overcome a lot of things. So what could you share with our listeners, maybe a story that resonates about like grit, where you had to utilize it, or where you can inspire someone else that might be in a very low place?
Sure. Well, when I look back now, because of course hindsight's 2020, so you have the wherewithal to look back and appreciate what was going on at the time, even though it wasn't always very optimal or very pleasant, right? So for all of us in the military, I mean, you have to keep pushing forward. There's no, hey, time out. Let me address this. Let me try to figure out
Absolutely.
what's going on and make sense of it. You don't have that time and space and ability to do that. So you just keep pushing forward one day at a time and focusing on the mission and the job. And that's the beauty, I believe, the military. Where everything hit me was when I returned home from my last deployment and came off of active duty, because at that point I wasn't running at the same pace I had been running for a couple years. And
was it faster, slower? You're saying you had to slow way down probably?
Well, yeah, everything kind of came to a crashing halt. And, that story is not that different from many other veterans who, when you come off of active duty, what do you do at that point? It's just a big adjustment to find yourself, your environment has totally changed. The people around you has totally changed. And you feel like a fish out of water.
Oh, yeah. And trying to find yourself whenever you're not even comfortable in your own skin, because everything's changed and nothing seems normal. Or at least the reality that you've been functioning in.
Yeah.
So it's like,
really.
it's really the perfect storm for so many veterans of just like all of the life events that are like your normal stressors on those things where they have you like, hey, have you moved? Have you, changed your marital status? Have you had a death in the family? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, and now find yourself, find your vision in life. You're in the middle of like a hurricane, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it definitely makes a difference if you have a great environment to come back to, where you live and what you're doing and who you surround yourself with. But if you don't, it's definitely much more of a challenge. So
Okay.
That being said, that's not a unique story to so many veterans. I think so many veterans have experienced that to varying degrees. So, my personal thing was, 2007 came back. The last 6 months, really last 4 months of my last deployment were the most insane. It was right during the surge, so
okay,
we
so
had very high
contacts, troops in contact, firefights.
Yeah. We lost a lot of folks, and so it wasn't.
Sorry to hear that.
So much that because there's logic, behind soldiers deploy, and unfortunately, things happen that lead to the soldiers getting killed at war. It wasn't even as much that. My personal struggle was what had happened that during that time period while I was deployed downrange. And I do mention some of it in the book with the toxic leadership that I found myself in that environment for a good period of time in my second deployment. Not so much the first, but the second deployment. And it was, that whole cognitive dissonance, because here I was part of Special Operations Command, and yet because of the nature and the demand of the war, things were, piecemealed. And I was, at one point serving under some very toxic leadership, myself and others as well. And, it wasn't, like a stateside thing where you come home at night to your family and to your home in your safe house or whatnot. No, you're literally in the middle of a war zone. There are no resources there. So
nowhere safe.
Who do you turn to? Yeah. What do you do at that point? And, looking back, obviously knowing the stories of so many others and how they were affected, to the point where, some of them are no longer with us anymore. So I feel very blessed, very fortunate to have push through for sure, no question. But at the same point, it's important to share that story, because I think that others, can find strength, even if they never served in the military, just by knowing that they can find themselves in as crazy of in a scenario where they do not believe they have anybody they can trust.
You cut out there for a second. If they find themselves in a scenario where they can't find anybody they can trust?
Correct. Which is very scary, to not have any allies, So,
yeah.
But people do, find themselves in that situation sometimes.
And, it's really sad, but I think I hate to say it, but I think it's more often than not that I think people kind of find themselves in that situation. And because that's my big fight. My big fight is against toxicity. So the lessons that she's talking about here and all of these things that she's discussing, read her book, learn those lessons, because you would rather learn them through someone else's experience and try to implement them than learn them through your own experience. And even if you don't learn them through the book, having absorbed that material in advance, whenever you get in those situations, you're already better prepared to deal with it, instead of like so many people, like we're saying, is where now you're trying to figure it out as you're living through it. You're trying to write the how-to guidebook while you're in the middle of the storm, which is just crazy.
Absolutely. And, to think that we can figure everything else or everything in life by ourselves, well, sometimes we're fortunate to do that, but it takes a lot longer and there's a lot more suffering involved.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, hey, why go through the pain if you can avoid it? You know what I'm saying?
Right. And, here's the good news. Like, if there's one silver lining takeaway is just never quit on yourself. And
absolutely.
It's true. Once you give up on yourself, okay, well, nobody can help you at that point. But you have to have that faith in yourself. And another silver lining is, and it sounds so cliche, but it's true. It's so true. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And, looking back, I would not change anything if I had the ability to go back and change it, because all those experiences and hardships and setbacks have made me bulletproof.
Right?
In my state of mind.
For real.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And I want to say thank you so much for bringing these silver linings, because that's a big focus of this podcast, is that positivity, developing that bulletproof mindset, like you said. And now you've done that through your bulletproof lifestyle, and now you're sharing it with others. So yes, 100%. Thanks for those silver linings. I love it. And I'm all about tools. So I'd like to switch back to something that you mentioned earlier. You said coming back to the right environment is so beneficial and helpful. So for people who maybe are on the beginning of a journey, I want to give you a little bit that, she's already talked about. So I'm just summarizing some of the things that she said and just making it a little bit more readily available for those people in case you missed it. So you're kind of starting out and you're like, okay, I'm going to deploy. I'm going to do some of these things. Intentionally set your environment before you leave for what you want to come back to or what you expect to come back to, but also know it's likely going to change. Whenever you close that door, whenever you leave that space, time will have an effect. So know that in advance and, try to keep touch points and try to mitigate that as much as you can. And then for those of you who've already been there and done that, one thing that I did, sometimes you get into a routine and you do it the same way. And the same way I did it on my last time was not effective. And, sometimes things fall through and they fall through in a big way. So, always be willing to learn, seek new ways to prepare, and find other areas of vulnerability. But you have to be intentional about creating that environment. So you're going to need to make it. So I just kind of wanted to give a couple little tools, if you're into those things, about how you can kind of fortify yourself by intentionally making your environment the way that you want it to be before you kind of leave and go away from it. Did you want to kind of tie anything in there? Because it was really your piece, and I just wanted to reconnect that.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. Also, too, is to really know yourself. And how do people do that? So in the beginning of my book, I have a little exercise where people identify their mindset. Are they growth-minded or fixed-minded? And understanding where you lie in that space is very critical to understanding how are you going to approach everything in life, every challenge that comes your way, And for people that are growth-minded, no matter what they choose to do or take on or whatever their endeavors, they expect there are going to be challenges, and they don't, sit there trying to war game. This is what I'm going to do, how to handle it. Like, you just do it. You build that resilience, and you're able to make decisions quickly to get you through to the next day. Sometimes it's just the 25-meter target, and that's totally okay. But you keep moving forward. You move that needle forward. It's a survival mindset, really, is what it comes down to. So if you don't know what kind of person you are, maybe you're a young person, and well, everybody's been through a lot in 2020, for sure, collectively, as a society. We've all been challenged in many ways, with what the world's going through and, domestically here in the States. But, for folks that just hadn't reached that point where they know who they are, I try to provide that opportunity for them to ask questions of themselves and figure out where they lie. So that they can, make that determination, that intentional decision to become a growth-minded person and realize, hey, life is not always going to be simple. It's not always going to be under my control, but I choose to embrace it and grow and keep growing and growing through the hardships and become a better person and emerge stronger as a result.
That is so awesome. So we were talking about how we're highlighting lady bosses here, and she just comes in and just hits like 8 grand slams in a row by just talking about that resilience. And you don't get to choose it. Sometimes you're just thrown into it, and it's just getting back up, growing from it, not just getting back up and just, getting back into the same dirt and falling back into the same puddle, but growing through it, learning from it. And then another piece that you said, not just the resilience and the grit and the determination that you've shown, demonstrated, and are now giving people a guidebook to do themselves, but you said embrace it as well. So instead of just like, oh, I have to do this, oh, woe is me, you're like, hey, this is just part of the process. Like, let's just smile and let's just get after it. Dirty, bloody, filthy, and all. That is just awesome.
Yeah, I just smiling, laughing in my mind because I know you understand, embrace the suck, right? Like, how many times, like, in the military,
for real,
we've had some really, less than desirable details, where we have to,
yeah, just grin and bear it,
Yeah, you just have to do it.
And so,
have to do it. Like, yeah.
So, okay, I'm way behind on popular culture. It's crazy, but I just finished all of Vikings, right? Mm-hmm. And I really, really, really enjoy that show. But, I mean, can I just say that you kind of remind me of a shield maiden? Is that okay?
Well, thank you.
That is so awesome. Like, you're like in my mind, you're like Lagertha.
Promotion.
Like, in my mind, you're like Lagertha, honestly, because you're just confident, amazing, just, you tear things up, but you're just resilient and you don't mind getting gritty. And you know what? And that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand about Viking culture compared to other things is that the women were more equal in their civilization than any other society. They would go together at war and they would negotiate together, which was very unseen in the rest of the world at that time. They were equal companions, the way that I understand it traditionally.
So, yeah, environment determines things. And, I do have to circle back to the fragrance line. I started while we were speaking about victory with the bourbon note in there, but part of the same line, the red line, I have confidence for women. And another masterpiece eau de parfum, but, the little card that comes with it, the story that comes with it, it's all about that, like, if I can read a little bit.
Yeah, I would love for you to read some of those quote cards because that was one of the most profound things I think that I took away from just the unboxing. So I would just love to hear from just a powerful woman, like I said, shield maiden, all of these things that she's sharing and passing on to all of us.
So I have the confidence card that comes with it. It's a little wallet-sized card that, men and women, they, with their respective bottles, they can keep with them, put in their wallet, put in their mirror, their refrigerator. So I'll read confidence. It says, I am strong. I am capable. I am fearless. Life's challenges have made me a force to be reckoned with. I have confidence. I exude confidence. Confidence is sexy. confidence is powerful. I am confidence. And that's a message that I think is so important when I look back at my life and what I've endured and have pushed through. I realized one of my superpowers is confidence.
Awesome. That is, yeah.
But, so I knew it was important to share that with, say in this case, with other women who haven't received that message. And, I was very fortunate. My father did raise me to be a confident person. And, so I never, I have a line in my book, I never felt unempowered, something along those lines, because it's true, but I know that a lot of women were not raised in that manner. And here is the thing, it's a rough world out there and it's gotten a little crazier. So
yeah,
we need to have the survival tools to get ahead in life, and so you can thrive. And
absolutely.
Why not, right?
And as you're a queen, you're royalty, you rock, you know what I'm saying? You are one of these awesome people, but the reason you're there is not because of necessarily what you've done, but, what you're doing. You're lifting up. You're inspiring others because you've lived through it. And that is what true leadership, if you're going to try to say that, I'm a king or I'm a queen or I'm a royal, right? It's about that servant leadership, and that's what you live day in and day out. I mean, just that quote card that you talked about confidence and how people put that greatness in you, and now you want to breathe that into others, that lifting up. And that is just so powerful. So thank you so much for living that, breathing that for all of us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, it's my duty and responsibility to give back, because I realize my life at many points could have gone in different directions, for sure. It could have passed thresholds that would have been very, very hard to return from. So I am very blessed. I feel very fortunate to have been able to have gotten to this point. I do believe it's a combination of my intentionality and just, core beliefs of surviving and not ever being a victim, always, taking the
keeping
hardships.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful right there.
Yeah.
Not being the victim, refusing to play the victim.
Always. I mean, that stuff's going to happen. Life is not fair, and, it's interesting when I get in, groups of, say, women, we have the Clubhouse app is out now, and, so there are different rooms, and, I hear a common theme where, or several common themes, and I always want to say, you've got to accept life is not going to be fair, okay? Mm-hmm. Yes, we have laws and regulations, but, human behavior is what it is, and you're not going to change that.
So true.
If you want to play in the game, you have to accept the fact that, maybe you do have to work harder. Maybe you do. And
find the ways to work around it. What do you need to do? How do you need to adapt to work in the game, in the system, in all of these things that we're constricted and confined by?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's glass ceilings everywhere. We're all, you know what I mean? And we're all affected to different degrees. I'm not trying to compare and contrast here. We're just talking about the reality.
And that's the truth. It's the reality of how things are. And, I think that we've had a long season of political correctness in our country and, what's that word, gender norming and equality, and not in the altruistic sense, but in the default sense. And I think that's not helped in many ways, because I think when I look back, everybody, what I've been through, I'm glad, nobody can ever take away from me who I am at my core. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't find myself in situations that were not fair or were not, pleasant, I would not have developed these, this resilient mindset that has helped me to push through and survive.
I just want to kind of drop a little anchor there. So you, from the confidence in yourself, that was your anchor. That was your strength. You knew, I am this person, and there was no question. So you'd found that truth about yourself, which gave you that ability to just power through. And I think what I'm hearing is that this day and age, there's a lot of people that they've never really gone down that deep to maybe who they are and what they believe in and what they stand for, and who they are to a core strong enough to be able to confidently say that a lot of people maybe will vacillate based on emotions or what's going to be the most beneficial for them at the time.
That, and I think they've unfortunately fallen prey to the collective narratives that are out there, and they, see themselves as predefined by society. And that notion is just so far out there to me, because if you let society define you, then you become a sheep.
Mm-hmm.
You're not an individual, and you can't develop your true north.
Yeah, knowing what defines you. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. You have to develop it on your own, not let society, put you in these categories and tell you how to think.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And just because, especially with how we receive a lot of our information these days, it can be extremely dangerous. So thank you for being an advocate for that. And we talked about that a little bit on a previous podcast while I was actually on, and that's where I said my desire would be that the wool, that people would be able to see kind of, the wool would be lifted, and that more people would be able to see kind of the reality or the truth of kind of what life is really about and what's kind of really going on in the world, if you will. So
Critical thought is
Yes.
so important.
critical thinking, 100%. Like those word problems. It's like nobody likes the word problems. Nobody likes having to pay attention and put everything together, but like we need them so badly.
100%. I mean, we're top of the food chain, and when we look at people who've gone before us, like thousands of years ago, they didn't have the technology
No.
we have.
No, we are
The
so
modern-
blessed right
Yeah.
now. We're so well positioned to grow so much as a human race, It's
For
incredible.
sure,
It's
for
incredible.
sure.
I love it. So we're getting close to our time here, but I want to give you the last word. I want to say again, thank you so much for being on the show. I love the energy. I love the passion. You are an incredible shield maiden, an incredible warrior, and I just want to honor that and respect it, and thank you for everything you've grown through and how you've always been a personal impact in my life, and now you're scaling that to the world with your book. So please get her book. Check her out. Get her fragrance line. It's absolutely incredible. And you have the last word.
Thank you, Brent. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with your audience and hopefully provide some value, unique perspective that can help them throughout their days as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and I'll chat with you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on this curious roller coaster of life. If this is your stop, please exit peacefully. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're ready for another one, just push play. Just a final note before you go, thank you, and thank you for feeling. The distillation and aging process is different for everyone. I'm not quite sure what you're ready for. Sip slowly and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey and I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth, smooth